Why does it hurt to use a tampon? There are a few possible explanations for pain during tampon use. Pain when inserting tampons. Lack of relaxation. The vagina is a muscular tube, so if you're tense the vaginal muscles will tense, thus causes the walls of the vagina to clench together and thus make the vaginal canal narrower. If a person attempts to force the tampon into the vagina at this point, then they would essentially be pushing against the vaginal walls and there will be increased friction between the dry-roofed tampon and the delicate vaginal tissues. Tips: when first trying tampons, try after a relaxing bath, and if you struggle then rather than getting frustrated go do something calming and try again later. Try masturbating first, as when aroused your vagina relaxes, lubricates, and opens, so makes insertion easier. Practice tensing and relaxing vaginal muscles, then purposefully relax these during insertion. Wrong angle. The vaginal canal is curved, so if you were to insert with the tampon angled straight up, then you would just push the tampon into the front vaginal wall rather than guiding it into the vaginal canal. If you try to force the tampon to go further when it's aimed incorrectly, then this just means pushing into a vaginal wall, and thus it will cause you pain. Tips: try non-applicator, as these allow you to feel for resistance, thus if the tampon hits a vaginal wall you can more easily feel which direction to guide the tampon into instead. Aim towards the small of your back. Also try different positions which can help change angle of the vaginal canal. Insufficient flow. Tampons are dry, so cause friction against the delicate vaginal tissues during insertion. This is especially so if you use rayon tampons, which are more drying and rougher than other types of the tampons. Without sufficient flow there's not enough lubrication between the tampon and the vaginal walls, so there is increased friction and irritation as a result. Tips: always use lowest tampons for your flow, and never use tampons when not menstruating or with very light bleeding such as spotting. Use lubrication with the tampon, such as ghee jelly or natural oils such as coconut oil or olive oil, no Vaseline, baby oil, or lotions. Try sponge tampons which are softer and moistened before use, so less friction. Not alternating with pads. Tampons absorb 65% menstrual fluid and 35% natural moisture, thus tampons will dry out the vaginal walls causing splitting and ulceration. This increases the risk of TSS but also means use can be uncomfortable, inserting, during use, and removing. It's important to alternate with pads as often as possible to allow vaginal cleaning and healing. Tips: alternate with pads as often as possible when using tampons. At very least pads should be used overnight. If you notice irritation around the vaginal opening, it's a strong indication to take a break from tampons. Presence of a hymen. Contrary to popular belief, the hymen is not always to warn when tampons are used. In most people there is enough room for a tampon to fit through the hymen and it's flexible enough to stretch if needed. If the hymen is torn, it can be painful but often isn't more than a little stinging. Tips: get to know your genitals. Look at your vulva in a mirror to see if your hymen would be an issue when it comes to inserting tampons. If your hymen is covering more of the vaginal opening than usual, it can be slowly stretched with your fingers using lubrication, and if the hymen remains a problem, then talk to your doctor about hymenectomy. Pain when wearing tampons. Incorrect absorbency. Tampons are absorbent to absorb menstrual flow, but they also absorb vaginal moisture and thus cause damage to vaginal walls, which increases risk of TSS and can be uncomfortable. If you're using too high an absorbency for your flow, it will be more drying and irritating. Tips: always use lowest absorbency. If a tampon leaks within 1-2 hours, it's safe to use next absorbency up, but if the tampon isn't saturated after 4-6 hours, use lower absorbency or switch to pads. Opt to avoid rayon tampons, which are rougher and more aggressively absorbent. Allergic reaction. Rayon tampons are heavily chemically treated, but due to laws protecting company trade secrets and lack of independent regulations, there's no way to know what chemicals are used. It is possible for people to develop sensitivity or allergic reaction to ingredients in tampons, This can result in increased pain, which may be mistaken for increased menstrual cramps or increased irritation of the vaginal walls. Tips: avoid rayon tampons. Opt instead for hypoallergenic 100% organic cotton tampons like Nitricare, Catons, or Mersha. You may also prefer to use natural sponge tampons like Sea Pearls or Sea Clouds. Not inserted high enough. The first third of the vaginal canal is the most sensitive and the narrowest part of the vagina. Tampons are supposed to sit just above this point, and if too low they can be painful. If you feel pain as you move about or sit, as a result of the vaginal walls pushing against the hard tampon, then you know that you need to insert higher. Tips: make sure to insert as high as possible during first use, and if using applicator tampons it's especially common for this to occur, so try non-applicator tampons and recheck instructions to ensure correct use. Increased cramps. Many experience increased cramps when using tampons, yet may not be aware that tampons are even to blame. Without sufficient research we don't know exactly why this occurs, but the most common theory is that tampons expand into the cervix. This may be more common in those with shorter vaginal canals and with lengthways expanding tampons. Tips: try to note if cramps are worse when using tampons. If this is the case, try to avoid lengthways expanding tampons or try options like sponge and soft tampons. Also consider options like menstrual cups or soft cups. Pain when removing tampons. Lack of relaxation. The vagina is a muscular tube, so if you're tense the vaginal muscles will tense, thus causes the walls of the vagina to clench together and thus make the vaginal canal narrower. If a person attempts to remove the tampon, they would be trying to pull against vaginal walls closed around the tampon. It essentially becomes a painful game of tug-o-war. Tips: if you struggle, then rather than getting frustrated, go do something calming and try again later. Try masturbating first, as when aroused your vagina relaxes, lubricates, and opens, so makes removal easier. Insufficient flow. Tampons are dry, so cause friction against the delicate vaginal tissues during removal. This is especially so if you use rayon tampons, which are more drying and rougher than other types of the tampons. Without sufficient flow there's not enough lubrication between the tampon and the vaginal walls, so there is increased friction and irritation as a result. Tips: if the tampon you've used isn't saturated by the time you need to remove it, then try using lubrication like peat jelly or natural oils such as coconut oil or olive oil, no Vaseline, baby oil, or lotions. It can also be helpful to sit in a shallow bath of water. Vaginal walls close in around the tampon, so you may need to insert fingers vaginally to try to help the water get to the tampon to soften it enough to comfortably remove. Hymen. If your hymen is still intact, then sometimes the tampon can get caught behind the hymen as you try to remove it, especially if expanded. When the tampon gets caught behind it, the pulling can be painful, or it can result in the hymen being torn, which can sometimes be painful too. Tips: look at your vulva to see if this is a possible cause of discomfort. When you go to remove a tampon, try changing the angle which you pull out the tampon, or push the hymen back out of the way during removal. Some people can't use tampons. There are many people who find that they just can't use tampons, whether it's due to general discomfort with the idea of tampon use or discomfort when using a tampon. For some people, tampons are never comfortable. There are plenty of other options that people can use, including menstrual pads, menstrual sponges, menstrual cups, and soft cups. Most people will opt to use menstrual cups like Moon Cup over tampons, as they have many benefits over tampons, including being more comfortable for most people. If you find you can't comfortably use tampons, it is not some sort of personal failing. You are in no way obliged to use tampons, and there is no reason why you would have to use tampons. No need to tolerate discomfort with tampons. How'd you get so far away?